What stopped you from committing suicide? A cat in Istanbul. Attempt 1, my room wasn't clean enough to leave behind. Attempt 2, a cop knocking at my car window telling me I had to move my car. I started sobbing and he called an ambulance. Attempt 3, I think the hospital did. Or my GF, I just sort of ended up crying after I tried to odd and calling my girlfriend. She drove me to the ER. Every day, probably the people in my life I love the most. I don't want to leave them behind to feel my absence. I clearly have a positive impact on them and I would never want to hurt them. Thanks for this post. Being an uncle. My wife and kids. That's literally it. I woke up in the hospital not thinking anyone would care what I did. My 2 best friends stayed by my side for 2 weeks straight. I don't deserve them, they saved me. Rage, between killing myself for self-pity or eyes and prove to everyone around how wrong they were, I choose the second option. A phone call. My attempt on suicide wasn't an emotional reaction. It was later observing a long run of ugliness that would continue. I was going to set my insulin pump to give 3 days worth in 20 minutes. Too much insulin is a nice, gentle way to go. Almost accidentally died that way once. Through happenstance one phoned me, I answered, in case I could help them. I didn't tell them what I was going through, but the chat reminded me there is plenty of good out there. The decision to kill myself inhabited me only for like maybe 30 seconds. When I looked at my dog, I thought about what he would think and would he understand, and who would take care of him. It was that moment that I woke up. I was like, oh no, this is a whole thing now. Like this is an actual emergency. That was where I drew the initial strength I needed to get help. I told a few key friends about what was going on. I told work I wasn't coming in, and that I would be in touch about if/when I would return. I called the helpline and did a bunch of other stuff. Thankfully I feel like I'm in a better place now. I have an amazing new therapist, I quit my job, and I didn't die. So that was a fun birthday week. The knot slipped. I woke up on my garage floor an hour later. The fear of the unknown. Knowing the pain it would cause my parents, pensive face. I got a guitar. Already commented, but I have one more thing to add. Another thing that saved me was not having enough pills. When I was in 8th grade I stayed home from school. My mom couldn't care less about what I was doing. She was always over at her boyfriend's house, who was always extremely abusive to me, and she always put him first, because the night before I took like half a bottle of Tylenol and at least half a bottle, maybe more, of my brother's leftover ad medicine. I believe it was Concertoic. I texted my boyfriend at the time because I was like twitching out all night and my heart was beating so fast. I was texting him while he was at school, and around lunchtime he and his mom came over to my house, which was nasty because my mom had like 5 dogs that she didn't take care of. They used to be able to go out back whenever and roam the house until her douche nozzle of a boyfriend made her make a little fenced-in area in what used to be the dining room, and they were always locked in there, pissing all over themselves, and would bark like crazy because they never got any walks or love, and I would get in trouble for letting them out. I have major PTSD from that. And they just walked in because they were worried about me. I convinced her not to call 911 even though I still felt like I was going to have a heart attack. And she let my boyfriend, who I had been dating since like the 2nd week of 7th grade lol, stay w me, and we just talked outside. She told me I should tell my mom, but I think she saw how broken my home life was. I was never at home and spent literally every day from after school until like 10 p.m. at her house. If I would have had enough pills, I am sure I would have ended it. I'm not going to be like father, like son. My cat. My mom would tell me whenever I was away from home for more than a few days, she would sit in my room looking out the window from my pillow like she was waiting. Losing her the way I did sent me in a spiral, but now my reason is I know she would want better for me. And another is my dad. He has already lost 1 kid and I couldn't do that to him again. Seeing him cry at her mention is something that I can't ignore. I didn't want my friends to find my body. I don't trust my spouse to take care of our dogs. I remembered that corn on the cob was a thing. My son. Greater than to be, or not to be, that is the question, whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them. To die, to sleep, no more, and by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to, 'tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die, to sleep, perchance to dream, there's the rub, for in that sleep of death what dreams may come, when we have shuffled off this mortal coil, must give us pause, there's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the presser's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of disprised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient meriteth unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin? Who would fardels bear, to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveller returns, puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others that we know not of. Thus conscience doth make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with the pale cast of thought, and enterprises of great pith and moment with this regard their currents turn awry and lose the name of action. Well, sadly it was simply pain and fear. I was scared of the pain of driving a knife through my chest or hanging myself, and I was scared of death and what I would see on the other side. Courage to fighting with the absolute worst version of myself. Not wanting to. A good meal can do wonders. A good meal with good company can do miracles. I kept visualizing my daughter's face if she found me or when she would find out. Since then it's the help that I got from my counselor and psychiatrist. Worth every penny and moment I spent getting help. Fear and the fact that I'd probably be saved when I only wanted to end it all. No one else will make my kids brush their teeth. Books. I read a book series that had a new edition coming out yearly. I was just a teenager, that was the only reason I stayed for the worst of it. After that, I held on to moving out for university. Once in university, there were lots of things to distract me. I was still suicidal, but it was easier to drown out the thoughts. Ultimately, the answer was fear. I was scared. I was scared of staying, but I was more scared of how it would feel to die and disappoint everyone by showing them how broken I was. Aside from the obvious answer of a crippling fear of death, my reason would have to be my cats, my family and Dark Souls. I love my cats and my family too much to be without them, and playing through the Dark Souls trilogy helped me feel like I was beating back my demons, one corrupted knight, king, beast, dragon and, well, demon at a time. Each game I beat I felt part of the darkness fade, letting light seep back into my life and making things easier. Well, I survived a suicide attempt a few years back by sheer luck. One thing led to another and I'm still here. Not trying it. My son. I'm such a coward. I can't escape it. Seriously, a Swedish song. Jagar en Vampire by Marcus Krungard motivated me to keep learning Swedish and gave me purpose in life again. I didn't take enough drugs. I just threw up a whole bunch. So I guess my supply prevented success. Then the second time my boyfriend at the time literally pinned me to take away the knife I had started cutting myself with. He wouldn't let me go until everything sharp was hidden. We'd stopped my consistent suicidal ideation. Debts. My oldest brother found me face down. He and my mom rushed me to the hospital where they were told I basically paralyzed my heart. My dad came outside one night. He had been drinking and was never really one to discuss his emotions. I was sitting on the porch smoking and contemplating how I was going to do it. He walked up behind me and told me how much he loved me. No girl is worth my life. He would be so sad if I ever died. Then he talked about when he thought about killing himself until he met my mom. We hugged it out and went back inside. Little did he know I was thinking about it. Little did I know that was one of the last conversations I had with my father before he died of a heart attack. I am alive because of my father. Guilt. Admitting to myself how much my suicide would affect the people that genuinely cared for me. And mushrooms. I called the hotline and they placed me on hold for an hour, which just needed up being funny to me. Fear, the fear my mother would follow me. I don't want my nude autopsy photos to end up on the internet for anyone to see, and I'm low-key worried that I'd be condemning myself to hell.